This episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus. If you don't already subscribe to Paramount Plus, please use our affiliate link by going to talkthroughmedia.com/Paramount Plus. Using our affiliate link gives us a little credit, which helps us to keep bringing you great content. U.S. residents only.
Hello, and welcome to episode 12 of the Star Trek Lower Decks podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Kyle.
And tonight we'll be covering Season 2, Episode 2 of Star Trek Lower Decks, titled Kayshon, His Eyes Open. But before we get started, something we didn't include last week that it's worth saying, and it changed from last year, is that we are brought to you by, or at least, we have a little affiliate program with Paramount Plus, which used to be CBS All Access. Now it's Paramount Plus. Mm-hmm. So if you aren't a member of that, but would like to join up, you could go to talkthroughmedia.com/Paramount Plus. And there, if you sign up, it won't cost you anything, but the podcast will get a little incentive to forward you over, and helps, cover costs of running the podcast. So anyway, this basically covers this podcast, Discovery, Picard, Prodigy when it comes out, Strange New Worlds, all of that stuff. So anyway, the link is talkthroughmedia.com/Paramount Plus. And I believe talkthroughmedia.com/CBS still works. So just wanted to mention it. And maybe by next week, we'll have an actual recording of saying that. But anyway, and we're saying again that if you're listening to this on the Star Trek Picard cast, you may want to switch over to the Star Trek Discovery podcast feed, because that has all of the podcasts in the feed, including Discovery. Whereas for Picard, it doesn't have everything. So I think it has this, but it won't have Prodigy, and doesn't have Discovery. And I don't think it's going to have Strange New Worlds either. So, or you could switch over to the Talk Through Media All-Inclusive feed, which also includes Rebinge DS9 and the other podcast you and I do, along with LT. LT is going to be kind of like I don't know, he'll be our Garrick. recurring star. Anyway, we do the Walking Dead talk through, so that comes back this week as well. So, all right, so let's go to open hailing frequencies. Before we get started with some feedback we got from last week, we want to just bring up one little piece of errata.
Incorrect.
And it's not really errata per se, but it was something that we didn't know at the time that we recorded it, but I wanted to mention it in case you guys don't know about it from last week. There was an episode of The Ready Room for the season premiere. Now, they haven't done one for this episode, and it won't be back until the season finale, but there is one that's available for the previous episode, and it is available on all the usual places, not just on Paramount Plus, but and Amazon Prime or however you watch it, but also YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, I believe. Probably everywhere but TikTok, because you can't fit that on TikTok.
Not too long.
So just wanted to mention it. And all right, so our first bit of feedback came in, unfortunately, after the deadline. Our normal deadline is 7 p.m. Friday evening after the episode. So just keep that in mind. I know we say that like at the very end of the episode, and I think some people don't listen to the end. So it's worth saying. But yeah, so we got a little bit of feedback that came in after we finished recording. So here's the first piece from Brian from Colorado. So Kyle, why don't you read that one?
All right, we have Brian from Colorado, and he gives his rating as 9.5 Gary Mitchell callbacks. And he said, this was by far my favorite Lower Decks episode yet. His yeses were, there are 4 lights. His no was Rutherford never made it to his swim date in, I always have
Cetacean.
Cetacean ops. Not good enough. The Titan scene didn't make sense to me. Oh. And then he put in an update. He's like, I just listened to the podcast. My feedback must not have made it in time.
Yep.
Yeah. I wanted to respond to the suggestion that season 2, episode 1 story would have worked better with Mariner as the godlike figure instead of Ransom. I think that wouldn't have worked for one big reason. Season 2, episode 1 was essentially a remake of season 1, episode 1, recycling almost all the major plot elements. And I watched these two back to back to jog my memory, and the parallels are uncanny. Both involve second contact, Mariner going on a side mission that goes bad, Ransom mutates into a monster and threatens the ship, Rutherford and Barnes have a date that goes bad due to his cyborg implant, and Tendi crashes, and of course, the ending scene with the captain having Mariner hauled off to the bridge.
The brig, I think that's supposed to be.
The brig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does say bridge, so it's probably autocorrect.
Yeah, that happens. I don't know why they chose to essentially recycle most of the main episode plot elements from season 1, episode 1, but it seems very deliberate to me. Hence, the die was cast for the roles each character was to play in the story, so that's why we got what we got. This comparison isn't perfect, of course. The main difference is Boimler is gone now.
Yeah. I think you make a good point on this, and the only thing I don't remember, and like I watched it last week, so I don't know. I've been pretty busy since then, so maybe I'm just not remembering it. But I don't remember Tendi crashing his date. So I know that Tendi seemed to crash something. I know that what's her name? Mariner crashed Boimler's date. You know, and that episode from Cupid's Errant Arrow, which I did go back and watch a piece of this week just to look at something. But yeah, that was the only I saw that, but otherwise I didn't see Tendi. But the other points that you bring up, and I should just say I could be wrong about that, but the other difference, and it's a minor one, is that Ransom's mission goes bad on the planet and in space, I guess. So he never comes back up to the ship, versus it goes bad. Yes, it's an away mission, but it doesn't go really bad until they're back on the ship. So I mean that's like, you know, neither here nor there. But it is very similar. Yeah. Now that you mentioned that, I mean, you know, he didn't make an army of bros, but
yes,
you know, and turn godlike, but otherwise, it did definitely have a lot of similarities there.
And he then went on and said, P.S. I also found the Jennifer the Andorian aspect really funny. It also is really looking forward to seeing the Temerian in future episodes.
Yeah, and I'm very curious about the Jennifer the Andorian.
Yeah, kind of like it.
Yeah, it is kind of funny too. Like, you know, it's like yoga. Yeah. Edwin from Arizona, he also gave just a little bit of feedback, just with a rating. He says 9.9. I do what I want. So, moving on to this week's episode, Season 2, Episode 2, Kayshon, His Eyes Open. Written by Chris Kula, who is a co-executive producer on the show and was also last season. And directed by Kim Arndt, who I believe Kim directed 3 episodes last season. So they are also, back this season. So the description from ParamountPlus.com is as follows. Our lower deckers have trouble bonding with Ensign Jet Manhaver, and I have something to say about this, who has been assigned Boimler's bunk and shift duties. Meanwhile, we get a glimpse of Boimler's life on the USS Titan, which is more intense than he thought it would be. We actually did get a star date. It's star date 58001.2. And the air date, as shown on ParamountPlus.com, is August 18th, 2021. Of course, it's only that in Pacific time. I don't know what time it was released. I didn't watch it until, I think, the morning. So I had a runtime of 24 minutes and 38 seconds. So just slightly shorter than last week. Kyle, what did you think of this week's episode?
Well, I really liked it. So far, this season's been hitting a lot of marks for me. 9.9 hasta mañana, pack lads.
And I was trying to think of a rating for this one. I think last week I gave it a 9. This one I'm going to give an 8.7. I'll say it was good. I just didn't find it quite as good as last week, but still pretty good. So I'll say 8.75, or I said 8.7. So okay, I'll keep that 8.7. Killer Roombas, or 8.7 suck ups at Tanagra. All right, so that's it for our ratings. And we also have some other ratings that will be in voicemails, but the listener ratings that we got, Brian from Colorado gave it 9.3 out of 10. Transporter wins. Carol from Washington, D.C.
I give Kayshon His Eyes Open 9 out of 10 giant pink tribbles.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sort of similar to mine. Wes from Minnesota gives it, he says, I give Kayshon His Eyes Open 9.5 flying Roombas out of 10.
I wanted to use Roombas, but I went with something else.
They did look very Roomba-ish.
Yes.
I think that was intentional.
Yeah. I mean, Mariner even called them vacuums.
Yeah.
So
he did. Yeah, she did. That's right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on to our yeses.
Yes!
All right. Our first yes comes from Brian from Colorado, and he says, Starfleet has a Temerian officer now! Exclamation point. Timba, his arms wide.
Yeah.
Plus, we got to see the sonic showers are like, and a version of Boimler is reunited with his friends on the Cerritos now. Which, that's a good question. Well, no, that's the original Boimler, although I guess...
Do we know?
Well, we don't know, only the fact that the one that stayed on with Riker, like, wanted to stay on. And I think we know Boimler was like, it could be a twist, but the way they played it, it just seemed like, okay, that Boimler was all about, being, changed his name to be like what, not named Thomas or what? Or William.
I think you're probably right that it was the copy, but I'll say more about that and when it's time to get to my yeses. But Wes from Minnesota says the Titan part of the story. Bring on a Titan animated show, Mike McMahon. I like the callbacks to other TNG things, such as the orange Captain Picard sculpture from the Pegasus and the Rycian Mind Game. Yes.
Yep.
Oh, can't forget Second Chances. Yeah.
That was like the first thing I caught, even from the first, like when I first watched it, was the game.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, that, and I couldn't remember. I was like, no, like what's it called? And it was just no, it's just the game.
Yeah.
But it was there was so much going on the episode that like I knew there was going to be stuff like when they're walking around with all those items and stuff, but I was just, if that's something you go back to study scene by scene. And I was just like, I can't.
Yeah. I was just waiting for Mariner to accidentally turn on that thing.
Yeah. Or like, put it on. Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was all of our listeners' yeses. And so I'll just go into mine.
Yep.
And it just kind of what I said, it was like there were just so many like TNG Easter eggs and probably non-TNG, but just Trek stuff. More than like I could ever, it's just fun being able to catch it. And then it was like seeing them Boimler and the Titan, because I said before, I was like, I want to see that. And so it was fun that we did get the back and forth, and instead of just like maybe a quick flashback or whatever. So
yeah,
and of course then he became part of the whole kind of like bigger plot point of the whole episode.
Yeah.
Mariner getting sucked by the evil Roombas. And I went back in the first like flying thing or whatever that was like shooting lasers or coming after him. The first ones, like when the alert or the defenses started going up. And I was trying to remember, like, where was that from? And I can picture them, so I'm not sure what it was. They looked like something, I don't know if it was from maybe DS9, but I just can't remember now. I thought I had it and I kept looking and looking. So I mean,
what are you referring to? Like what?
They're like these black orbs, and they were like flight, coming after them at the very beginning whenever the Haas came out of the hologram, was like, oh, you guys, I'm gonna collect you. And then there was like all these little black orbs that were flying around, and they remind me from some other, like another episode.
I'm surprised they didn't have those things from the Arsenal of Freedom. That was like a kind of a similar thing to the Roombas.
Yeah.
But
then when I saw the Roombas, I was kind of like, oh, well, maybe that's I feel like I knew what those were, but of course I didn't see that like on Geek, so I was kind of like, oh, maybe it wasn't anything, but
yeah.
But other than that, like Captain Freeman, I just kind of got a little kick out of the fact that she was spending all this time worrying about her evaluation from Starfleet about micromanaging, and then the whole time our people are like being turned into dolls and like trying to escape for their life, and she's just like, I don't micromanage, blah blah. And then at the end, when they are like, oh, there's 2 escape pods, I don't know, it was just kind of funny. Whatever, it was just fun little side story, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, and Tendi, I know we talked about this last season, but it was just I forgot what his name, the CG or whatever, the main collector that they were working with.
Oh yeah.
And they run to escape and get to that door, and then she's like, "I told you to keep your hands to yourself, Orion." And like Tendy's just like, like,
yeah.
She's like, she can't live it down. It's like,
I mean, that was mentioned. Was it last season?
Yeah,
because in that holodeck movie.
I couldn't remember exactly, but I know she's always like living down the Orion.
Yeah, it's like their pheromones cause them to be slave owners or something.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then the last, I mean, there's so many, and I know everybody's kind of basically just saying all the same stuff as when we get more of our listener stuff, but it's just like, I don't know, it's like Riker is just Riker and all his Riker ways.
Yeah.
And I loved how there was like his crew, and just kind of given their little like, oh, how boring the Enterprise, how could he, he must have been so bored, and like making the little jokes about like, quartets and this and that. But then at the end, you have Riker just being like, he's like, I mean, it's stupid, but it's hilarious because he's like, give me a warp factor. He's like, warp in the factor of 5, 6, 7 before he gets interrupted. But it's the thing that we've, come to love. It's like he just all his little nuances and just funny little things that we know that he does. They represented it here, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it kind of that then goes into the whole kind of like my overall yeses was just this whole episode, and I kind of like. I got this from also looking at some other reviews because through the whole episode, I was having this feeling of like, like there were like the two, I guess, Star Treks or like Starfleet, and it was like, and I couldn't quite put my hand on it. And I was just all like, okay, well, yeah, the Titan, the crew, they're all like gun ho, we're just shooting phasers and like, going after the bad guys and just like whatever. And then we have Boimler, who's kind of more of like, I like, to explore and like do, like science and like, whatever. It was just
right.
Those two, plays on that. And it was just funny because like the first thought that came into mind was like, I was like looking at the Titans crew being more of like how we see like Marvel and seeing our Marvel characters and, like, and the movies, like the movies are just big, huge, just like, oh, I don't know. It's just like, it's a different style.
Right.
But then after kind of, coming across some other reviews and stuff like that, then it was like, okay, now I get kind of the point where it's like, we kind of have that in New Trek and, some of the latter parts of like DS9 where, it's like, we have the, I guess I'll just say it because it's like Boimler said it at the end when Mariner was asking him, like, how's your life in the Titan? And basically his whole little speech was like, he's like, it was like a bunch of complex characters thrown into it, heavily serialized battles, which always ended in mind-blowing twists and made me question the basic tenets of my reality. and like it just kind of summed up all that for me because it was like, okay, I'm like I grew up with TNG and the whole style of Trek and like I don't know, it seemed like Trek there in the 90s embraced so much more just about like our human emotions, like the love of the classics, because like everything had something to do with some, classic, composer, classic writer, Moby Dick, and all this other stuff. And family was a big thing, and then obviously exploring. But I felt like the episodes and stories were always like kind of the moral of the story is, or is almost like an after school special.
Yeah.
And so, and it's like, Trek may be different today, but, because we have Discovery and we have Picard and, like some have said, so, like the Dominion War on DS9, and not that those are bad. It was just like, I feel like Lower Decks is kind of hitting all that fun, goofy, like emotional points of what I remember growing up and what I love about like, the Star Trek that I grew up with.
More idealistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the better way to put it. It was like, I was just, when I first watched it and then was trying to write it, it was like, I knew that I was like onto it. And then I just kind of had to get a little bit more help with my thoughts from, some other,
which is kind of funny, by the way, because I mean, a lot of people would say that, that Lower Decks is making fun of that. And, I'm more in line with your thought about it, that it's very, it honors it very well, and it reveres, the TNG era, especially TNG, I think.
Yeah.
And, it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? It respects it, with a great deal of, just the same tenets, of, what Starfleet is. And I love the fact that Boimler is kind of, in a way, he's still learning, moving up the ropes, and it's very green, but, very green. Oh my goodness. but, he's still that, that Star Trek, that Starfleet ideal, that Picard is, and in his own way, Kirk is, that they're there to do good, to help, to not interfere with other civilizations, and not anyway, all the great things we learned about when we were kids. So
yeah. It just made me think. It's like it is fun to see all the very more serious, dire, like the stuff of Picard and Discovery. But it's it's so good to just be able to watch fun, just goofy Trek, and it's and I don't think Lower Decks is not making fun of it. It's just I feel like it's fitting right in there.
Right.
And it's some of my favorite episodes are the ones that are just a lot of fun that have nothing to do with the big story.
Right.
And some of those I go back to rewatch over and over and over and over again. And that's just, to me, it's that's that, I love that part.
One of my favorite Discovery episodes, and I was having trouble remembering the name last week, but probably my favorite is Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Bad. That episode, you don't have to watch any of the other episodes to get into it. Just watch that, and it's just a time loop, and it's just fun, and it's just great fun, and but some of the great episodes from the various Star Trek eras have been those moral, like The Measure of the Man and things like that, that talk about these big questions. And I think, I think Star Trek does a really great job at discussing those things. So anyway, let's get back to fun stuff. So for mine, I don't know why, but I just thought it was hysterical. I couldn't stop laughing when they turned Kayshon into a puppet. Because at first I thought, is he dead? But then I'm like, no, he's just a puppet. So they're going to somehow be able to turn him back into a Temerian, and they did. But just the realization that he wasn't permanently turned into a puppet. I don't know. There was just something really, really hysterical about it. Dr. Miglimo, we saw him again, the ship's counselor, and he's the counselor that always uses food metaphors. I don't think he really did that this week too much, but the one thing I kind of noticed, the tip of the hat to Counselor Troy, is he's on the bridge sitting in the same position as Troy did, and not wearing a uniform. So I wonder if we're going to get, some episode like next season or a few seasons from now where, there'll be some other captain that comes in and Miglimo will have to, wear a uniform from now on. So I, above all else, because I didn't see this coming and I didn't see how they were going to deal with it, I absolutely loved the fact that they came back with the use of second chances. 2 Boimlers. I thought that was a stroke of brilliance by the writers, because I mean, I thought, I don't want to see Boimler screw up. I don't want to see him get demoted like that goofball Fletcher from last season, and him get promoted onto the Titan and then quickly get demoted. I wanted something else to happen to him, and I couldn't figure out how that was going to happen. But this is perfect, right? I mean, he does this fantastic thing, earns his spot on the Titan, and then Starfleet says, well, there's 2 of you now. Starfleet says we can't have 2 of you on the same ship, which makes total sense, by the way, because that would be weird. So having the original Boimler stay, or go back to the Cerritos makes perfect sense to me. And I love the fact that this time we're going to stay with the one that maybe isn't quite as successful, so this time the original Riker, moves up the chain of command, and the other one, stays on the ship and stays, at the same level. And this time it's the flip side. So, next time we see, transporter clone Boimler, he may be a lieutenant commander for all we know, or something.
Yeah.
So I think that is awesome that they came up with a legitimate way for Boimler to come back to the Cerritos and not get demoted in the process. So I really thought it was amazing. And they also have a really good excuse to bring back the Titan in other episodes. So I don't think that we're done with Riker. So Chateau Picard. I did not see this on first watch, but one of the many things that they had on there was at least one case, maybe two, of Chateau Picard wine. So I love that. I don't know why, and there is some comments about this later by one person, but I got a kick out of Kalus's fornication helmet. As a thing.
Yeah.
And I want to say there's some kind of helmet from like some ancient helmet that it reminded me of, like it looked like it. I can't place it. Might have been an Inca helmet. I don't know, or Aztec helmet, or I don't know. Maybe it was an African helmet. There's some kind of helmet that's used this way. And, if someone knows, please go ahead and send in some feedback on it. But it's just, I didn't get a chance to research it to see. Actually, I tried to research it, and I was unable to find. There's some courting helmet that is, I think it's Bamana something courting helmet, but it wasn't like a sex helmet. And I don't you didn't have to call it a sex helmet. It would have maybe got to a PG if she hadn't said sex helmet. I got a kick out of when Boimler, when Mariner said, "What? You don't cut off my badass plan?" And then they do. So they end up, taking his plan. They think that his plan is better. So I just got a kick out of that. But in the end, they go with Tendi and Rutherford's plan to get out. And their response when they're asked, "Well, why didn't you, volunteer, that plan?" And Tendi's like, "Well, you guys were, leading. So yeah, we just follow, I guess." So that's it for me as far as yeses. So let's move on to our no's.
No!
All right. Our first no comes from Brian from Colorado, and he says, "I'm not that fond of the Titan subplot. Even though it's great to see Riker, I also don't really understand why Mariner and Jet were so confrontational."
Yeah, it seemed a little forced, and that's part of what I'm going to get into in my no's. So I kind of agree with you on that point. And like I said, I will have more to say on this in a couple of minutes. Wes from Minnesota, he's next. He says, "Chairman Siggy reminded me too much of the Davy Jones creature from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Reminded me too much of Danny DeVito, but this character was not funny."
Good one.
All right. What do you have for no's?
Yeah, I just again, I like this episode a lot. So it was kind of hard to pick something that was oh no, that I really thought was wrong or whatever. But I mean, I guess it was the sonic showers because I just thought it was I'm like, could they really be turned up that high to cause a nosebleed? And because everything I know about like anything that's on a ship, they have safeties. So I guess
Yeah.
the safeties are off, because it just seems like that would be something that could never do if all it meant was to be cleaning you off.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just thought it was silly.
I mean, and if it's sonic, that means it's sound. So does that mean that, you could turn up the shower so much that it like makes you deaf?
Yeah, right. It was just the whole like turning it up and then they bled from the nose.
Yeah.
It was kind of like,
it
was just kind of pokey.
And why would the sonic showers glow hot? When it turns up all the way. I mean, okay, if it was water, you could see that if depending on how they heated it, but it didn't make a lot of sense from. But
it was just for it was visually and just for something.
Well, the fact that it made them get nosebleeds, I'm thinking, what is this, causing brain damage or causing some kind of inner ear disturbance? Which totally makes sense. But yeah, that's what I was thinking. Make them deaf. So I hinted about Jet. I'm confused. I think we have a retcon here. I went back and took a look at season 1, episode 5, which was the episode that we are first introduced to Jet. That's Cupid's errant arrow. And I can confirm that in that episode, he had 2 pips. Now, there's this one comment near the end where he's like, sometimes it's, I'll have like a popcorn kernel or something like that, So are they trying to say that the reason why he looked like he was a lieutenant was basically because he had a popcorn kernel stuck on his collar the whole time in the last episode? I mean, come on, this is a bit of a retcon to me, like an extreme retcon. And it seemed like he was this cool guy, and now he's a stickler by the book kind of guy. It's like they made him like Boimler light, like a little more rigid, not quite as like, spastic Boimler. So I don't know. I didn't understand the use of his character and why they needed to, if they were going to use, if there was no need for him to be Jet, considering the fact that it seemed to be already established that Jet was a lieutenant. And I mean, I don't know. That's just,
yeah.
I went back and confirmed that though he had 2 pips. So I don't buy that he had a piece of popcorn stuck to his collar the whole last episode. I'm sorry. Nope. So
I just pass one by.
Yeah. So to me, that was part of why the episode rated lower to me. It felt forced, and I didn't understand why they made that choice. So, I mean, some things can be retcon, and that's okay. But that one, it's just, I don't know. It's almost like, in some ways, like O'Brien. Now, they end up retconning O'Brien to the point where it's like, okay, they established his enlisted whatever, but when you first see O'Brien, he doesn't look like he's an enlisted. I think he had 2 pips, so, but anyway.
Yeah, they just probably after the fact, when they were writing it up, being all like, oh no, we need to do this. And so that was one way, to just basically like, oh, we'll just explain it in this funny thing at the end and just move on.
Yeah. Whatever. I guess that's fine, but I don't know. They could have made a different choice. They could have made it,
used a different character or made a new character,
or maybe he was just leading the away missions or something, or like would have been the team lead or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I would hope that then just to kind of end on that mark though, or like end on what you were kind of saying though. It's like I can understand, since this is just season 2 and just being like everything that's been going on, of being like, oh no, we have to fix this, and so it's like, or just to keep it going, whatever. But if this does continue to happen, then obviously I'd be like, okay, then you're just doing things just to do them, and not just like I can forgive a few things, and just because this is early in the beginning.
Yeah, this is not like a major faux pas thing. So maybe I'm just making more of it than I should have, but I don't know. It bugged me.
Yeah.
It bugged me enough that I noticed it right away. So that's why I guess I am listing it as a no. Because it wasn't one of those things that was like, it was more like, wait a minute, like I had that kind of reaction. Like, why is he there? He's not an ensign. So anyway, I've talked about it more than it needs to. Let's move on to our not good enough section.
Not good enough, damn it, not good enough.
All right. First, not good enough comes from Brian from Colorado. And he says, I wanted to hear how Kayshon was restored from being a puppet, but maybe that's part of the joke that we don't need to know.
Yeah.
Yep. Agree. We didn't get to see any of that. It just happened. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It was Dr. What's her name? Tana?
Yeah. Tana.
Something like that.
Tana.
Yeah. Her special depuppetizing serum. I don't know, but anyway, Wes from Minnesota says the Cerritos side of the story, this was the weaker of the two storylines. Yeah. I like which part is I guess, is he saying the going on the ship, the
or maybe the just Captain Freeman, the whole her just on the bridge thing.
Yeah. Well, I think it's definitely worth saying that was the weakest part of the episode. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, that was all of our not good enoughs from our listeners. I'll just go into mine, and it was kind of like like Kayshon, I kind of give him not good enough because I just kind of forgot about him, and it's like, and I just didn't really kind of care, and I didn't, maybe it's just I just wasn't that excited about seeing the Telluride or whatever, I don't know, or Temerian, sorry, a Temerian, and it was like, yes, he was turned into a doll, and that was funny. But I don't know, for some reason, I didn't really connect with him, and it just was kind of like, oh, okay, he's there, and then it was he wasn't, and then at the end, it was like, I don't know, I just kind of was like, okay. So maybe not good enough to me in the fact that I just didn't quite really make any kind of connection with him of what would have made him more interesting, at least to me.
Yeah. Well, I think he'll be interesting as we get to know him. But I did get a kick out of like how the universal translator wasn't quite translating him right. And, he kept on going back to Temba, his arms wide or whatever. So that I thought was funny. It was like a new take to that classic episode, which back in its day, think about it, Kyle, that came out like almost 30 years ago, like literally.
Gosh,
like I think next month it'll be 30 years that episode came out. I'd have to look that up, but it's either sometime in September or October of 1991 is when that episode came out.
Goodness
Amazing.
Gracious, I don't even want to say how old I was. So long ago.
Yeah.
All right.
my turn. Boimler spends too much time looking away from his station. Like when he gets commands from Riker, he's like turning his back and looking at Riker. And I'm thinking to myself, they don't do that. They, at least not when they're in the middle of a battle, they're not like turning back and looking at, Picard or Cisco. They're just simply, eyes on front, So I thought that was kind of weird, but I also thought it was kind of weird, and I don't know what message they were trying to portray here, but the away team, those officers on the Titan not appreciating the D, the Enterprise D specifically, and I just was like, I don't know. It's like, yeah, they did recitals, so what? It was I don't know. There was something enlightened about that, but
yeah, that's where I think that, and then that's where Boimler, then that was like his spot, because he kind of shows or ends up kind of basically then turning around. It's like, no, I'm like, that's like, I like, that's the Starfleet that I am, and it's like, we like to, explore and like do all these things, quartets and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, it plays out in the end. He ends up getting called Enterprise. But I mean, I guess they maybe, well, I don't know. I'm trying to like kind of reach, because I mean, it's like this episode definitely gave us two kind of the versions that we're seeing, like what's life on the Titan with Riker, like in all their crazy missions, to life on the Cerritos, and like being the Trek, like like the Enterprise D, and it was kind of the play off the two different places, and then Boimler being like kind of conflicted and not really, seemingly like that he was very comfortable there trying to fit in. But then we get the double transporter accident, so it's like it worked out.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. It's like the Cerritos is kind of like the I don't know, the supporting ship to the Enterprise D, and the Titan is like the Enterprise E, right? So the movie version of the Enterprise, doing all the kick-ass stuff, or don't get mad when I say this, but the Kelvin timeline. Some people just hate that, so and the last thing I'll say, that they almost pulled out Rutherford's implant again, and I'm thinking, give the guy a break.
He'll probably try for that again.
Yeah. All right, so moving on, we have our feedback section, and this time we have 3 voicemails, so let's move on to those and open hailing frequencies. All right, our first, keeping the streak alive, is Jeff X-Force 11.
Hello, Star Trek fans. This is Jeff X-Force 11 leaving my feedback about Kayshon, his eyes open. Oh my goodness. What a fun episode. This was just so meta. I loved Boimler's talk about what his time on the other ship was like. And it just highlights the difference between the series that we're seeing, and just how we fans can appreciate the differences between the different shows on Trek, and how that they really have different aspects for different things. And it was just so cool. I'm loving it. I'm glad he's back though, and it was just so cool. All right, those are my thoughts. X-Force 11 is out.
Jeff, thank you so much for your feedback, and the streak is alive.
Awesome.
Yeah, and had another thing where I didn't find his feedback. Haven't been doing a good job this season so far finding feedback. I don't know why, but
yeah. Well, no, glad you found it because Jeff, you just like kind of took like was the word that like pretty much sums it all up. Like that I was having trouble trying to like explain or say. It was like it was meta. It was meta, like this episode like was just kind of highlighting all the things that I like enjoy about Trek from my experiences to like, having, the appreciating the other side and it all coming together in this wonderful show, Lower Decks.
Yeah.
So I just, that was perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Very meta. That's a good way to put it. All right. Thank you so much, Jeff. And, we'll be talking to you next time, I guess, hopefully. All right. Well, he's not with us tonight, but LT, he had a family engagement tonight. So this is one of the episodes he won't be with us, but he did send us in some feedback via voicemail. So let's listen to it.
Hello, and hope the boys are having a good evening tonight. It's LT from NC, and I'm calling about Lower Decks. I'm off with the fam and unable to show up tonight, so I'm giving this week's episode 9 out of 10 transporter copies. Boo. Gotta hand it to McMahon. He's hitting it out of the park again. Absolutely loved the episode. Chock full of little nuggety Easter eggs. Still laughing hysterically over the giant Spock skeleton from the animated series and the big rock-headed alien and Abraham Lincoln skeleton in the display. It was a great episode. I think it's funny that here Jet's trying to fill in, him and Mariner are squaring off, and you're thinking something's going to happen. And our carbon copy Boimler shows up, and everything's back to status quo again. So we'll see how that plays out. Really enjoying it. I think that if they keep going at this pace, we'll see how good it gets by the end of the season. And just remember, don't play with him. He's not a doll. You guys have a good night.
Oh, thank you so much, LT. We miss you tonight.
Yes.
But thank you for sending in your voicemail. And as usual, you make some good points.
Yes, pointing out some of the nuggety Easter eggs.
Yes, like the Spock and Lincoln skeletons. I thought that was something good. There were, a whole bunch of things.
Yeah, it's
very meta. The salt vampire, whatever. It was all sorts of things. Every little thing that was in there was either something that like prior collectors collected or things that we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
He brought up the point about we think that Jet is going to be in that spot, and now we're back to Boimler, so Jet is not there. So I'm wondering, is Jet going to go back to his old shift and we won't be seeing him so much, or will Jet remain on beta shift and we will be seeing more of him? I mean, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Because, I mean, like, we saw him last season in just that one episode or two episodes. I think there'll be something to where we might see him again, but it also could be like this was just the one episode. There'll be other things, that they've got Boimler back, and now there's just going to be Mariner, Boimler, and Tendi, and Rutherford, and I don't think he's coming back as like a recurring character. He's just kind of gets put in there whenever we need him.
Yeah, guest character. Yeah,
That's what I feel. Yeah,
yeah. I don't think he'll be on a lot of episodes, but certainly I could see him coming back. But maybe 1 or 2 episodes a season.
Yeah.
So, all right, LT. Thanks for sending that in, and we will be seeing you next Tuesday to do the Walking Dead talk through. All right, so we have saved the best for last. I don't have words for this voicemail.
Amazing.
I don't know how much of it I absorbed on the first time I listened to it because I was laughing hysterically. Anyway, let's just play it.
Hello, Brian and Kyle and LT. I thought your name was LC, so maybe I need a hearing aid. But anyways, Brian and Kyle and LT, my name's Mary Lou, and I'm a first-time caller, but I've been listening to your radio show since the beginning when it was Ruthie. So I've been watching the Star Trek Lower Decks, and it's okay, for a cartoon. Sometimes I lose perspective and I think I'm watching animes with my grandson, and then I realize it's just the commander's head floating in the space. But, oh boy, if it was only his chest floating in the space, a giant man chest on the Star Trek, the sex symbols and all that. Well, he's a cartoon, Mary Lou. Don't get so excited over cartoons. So anyway, I was watching the Lower Decks and watching Mariner run around and Boimler be on the Titan with Captain Riker. And yeah, he's a captain now, hanging out with his wife, Deanna. And, they're living the dream on the Titan. And sometimes I sit there and I think, poor Boimler, he doesn't know what he's in for. He's going to be like the next generation all the time. Things going on, time travel, wormholes, paradoxes. It just doesn't make sense what happens on this Star Trek sometimes. But let's stick with the Lower Decks on the Saraceno or Cerrito or Doritos. I don't know. But anyway, I digress. There's gonna be 2 Boimlers. One on the Cerrito and one on the Titan with the Captain Riker Deanna. And maybe their kid. I don't know if their kid's around yet. The one that gets sick and dies. Oh, it's so sad. They probably won't mention that on the Lower Decks, because that's sad, and the Lower Decks is funny, and it always makes me laugh. Sometimes I'm watching it with my friend Cheryl, and she doesn't laugh when I laugh, and I says, hey, Cheryl, why aren't you laughing? And she looked at me and she said, because I don't understand the joke. Who's Chief O'Brien? And then I just laugh and laugh and laugh. But anyways, Brian and Kyle and Elle. Anyways, Brian and Kyle and you, I hope you have a wonderful day.
I'm sorry. I tried to keep from laughing. I tried to keep from laughing
because I couldn't stop. Oh my gosh! That hit the button. That winner.
What can you say about that one?
Oh, that was amazing. Oh gosh, I will. Can we have Mary on the podcast? We might not actually get
Mary
through
Lou.
it,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't care. That would be.
Yeah.
Oh.
I just I couldn't
Oh.
I couldn't hold back after about a minute and a half of that. I think Mary Lou, I think that's Trey from Pittsburgh, if I'm not mistaken. Trey, if that's you, if you ever want to come on the podcast, hell, if you ever want a podcast, come talk to me, okay?
Amazing.
What can you say about that? It's just amazing. And
Phew. Made me a little verklempt.
yes. Yeah, Cheryl. Poor Cheryl doesn't understand a lot of that stuff. Oh my. Anyway, thank you for that. That made my month. So
still crying.
Yeah, I know.
It's like, okay,
but, I've said it before. We got really good voicemail, a couple of them on the Walking Dead talk through this past season that weren't like this. Okay, they were just like telling us how good the podcast is and stuff like that. This tells us how good the podcast is in a completely other but also quite effective way. Because if you're willing to do that for us, man, that just that just shows me how much you appreciate us. So thank you, Trey, if that's you, and if it's not you, whoever did this, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it was brilliant. So all right. Well, we do have some other feedback.
Yes.
So let's go on to Brian from Colorado.
All right. Brian, he's like, P.S. I followed what I did last week and rewatched season 1, episode 2 after I watched season 2, episode 2 to see if there were any plot parallels this time too. There weren't really any obvious ones, so whatever motivated the writers to make season 2, episode 1 and season 1, episode 1 so similar doesn't appear to be carrying forward. I will add that I think season 1, episode 2 is my favorite overall episode of the series so far, as it was so very Starfleet in its themes, with the emphasis on friendship and mutual support among everyone. I do wince at the adult theme and foul language some episodes have, like the Klingon fornication helmet that they had this week, and this week, not cool when you're watching with kids.
Like I said, well, just one thing to correct. I think you meant to say that season 2, episode 1 is your favorite, because that's what you said in the feedback from last week. So not season 1, episode 2. I'm assuming that was a typo there, but yeah, I get where you're coming from. And like I said, I think if they had just not said sex helmet, if they had just said fornication helmet, because kids won't know what fornication helmet means, right? If you say sex helmet, they know what it means. So, I think you could have gotten away with having to explain that one.
Having to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they've done somewhat, pretty much any kind of foul language. They've not literally bleeped it out, but like Mariner would get cut off.
Right.
Or, so it's like they kind of leave it in to where like we would know what it is, but not actually having to say it. And I do like them doing that because you're right. It's like, I don't really think so much of like, oh, they said sex helmet. But when you think about it, you're like, well, why couldn't you just kept with fornication? And also I don't think about like, oh, someone was watching with their kids because it's animated and it's like fun.
Or
and then
bleep it. Just bleep the word, like they could have used a stronger word there and just bleep it, Yeah. And it would have worked just in that case. So, and would have worked. Yeah. So, because it didn't seem like there were as many bleeps this episode from what I remember. I think there were a few, but there weren't as many as say last week.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Cool.
We did get some more feedback. It came in between the time that we started recording and the time, or at least the time that we picked it up, from the show doc or onto the show doc from Facebook until this moment that we're in our recording. Carol from Washington, D.C., when we started recording, you had only put your rating in. So I just happened to look just to see, and now you've got some yeses and nos. So I'll just go ahead and go with the yeses and nos here. Yes, you said Tawny Newsom's performance as Mariner. Rutherford winning the bet that transporter clone would cause Boimler to return. I forgot about that. Yeah, that was a good point. That they bet on how he would return, and transporter clone was one of the things. That was good. On the mining planet, I did enjoy Boimler saving the day. Yeah, I did too. The Packlids throwing the saw at the door instead of using it to saw through the door.
Yeah.
Yes. And it was nice to see Dr. Miglimo back again. Her nose, the plot on the bridge of the Cerritos didn't seem to really go anywhere. Yeah, I would agree. That's I believe that's what was said earlier. Maybe it will pay off later in the season when the captain's micromanaging will cause problems. Maybe we'll see. But yeah, I agree. It was one of those situations where she tried not to micromanage and it blew up in her face, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of think that was the whole point of it, really. That's why we didn't really see much of it. It was just that little spot.
Yeah. All right. So we have gotten to the point of our spot the references section. We're got a lot of references, so I don't know if we'll read all of these, but and I may take a break and pass it over to you at some point. There's a lot here, but we got these, of course, from denofgeek.com, and we're not going to recite everything that they said because a lot of it we've already said. But first thing is beta shift. When Jet joins the lower deckers at the start of the episode, it's implied that they are on beta shift, and that seems to check out with season 1 when they were on beta shift. And this is also a reflection of when Jellicoe, changed things from a 3-shift rotation to a 4-shift rotation. And it seems like the 4-shift rotation is standard now on the on all ships or something. We've seen a lot of that going forward. So, anyway, sonic showers. We have seen, apparently they mentioned that they have been seen in Star Trek The Motion Picture. I do not remember that. But, good on you. It's been a while since I've seen that, and I'll probably not see it until next year when it's available on 4K. And then I'll see it. So the visual effect for the communal sonic showers is very similar to what we see in the motion picture. The one thing I noticed, of course, is that the all the bodies were blurred and pixelated, so you couldn't make out any real detail of their body parts. So apparently the communal showering for the lower officers vaguely references the novelization of the motion picture too. Okay, I'll take your word for it. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Gene Roddenberry may have written that. And if that's wrong, I will go back and buzz myself here. So anyway, collectors, of course, this is a reference to Kivas Fajo, who tried to steal data. And they mentioned about, isn't the one tried to steal data? And Freeman says they all tried to collect data. Yeah. I thought that was funny. Items owned by the collector. Yeah, we've mentioned several of the things, but here are some things that we didn't mention. Captain Picard's paper mache head from Captain Picard Day. I didn't recognize that or see that.
Like I said, there was so many things there.
A baseball bat and ball, which is a possible Cisco reference. Giant unicorn. I saw a horse. I don't remember seeing a unicorn, but I'll take your word for it. Possible Blade Runner reference. Okay. Marty McFly's shoes. Ooh, that's a deep cut. I wouldn't have noticed that. Back to the Future. I love Back to the Future. I just didn't notice the shoes. Terran Empire flag from Mirror Mirror. Okay. Khan's necklace from The Wrath of Khan. Ooh, that's a good one. The Valiant flight recorder from Where No Man Has Gone Before. Okay. A gold TOS uniform. Interesting. These Old Scientists from last season. Call them that. Let's see. Of course, we mentioned the giant pink Tribble and the M113 uniform, the Salt Vampire. Also, let's see, a Bazoid gift box from TNG, the episode Haven. That's the one where, of course, Loxana is trying to marry off Troy, which she tries to do many times. Let's see, trombone. Okay.
Yeah, like I said, like a lot of these I never saw because there's just so many things to look at.
Let's see. Riker loves Rogue Squadron. Oh, okay. Attack Pattern Delta. Yeah, okay. Empire Strikes Back. Yeah. More things owned by the collector. The Catan probe. Oh, okay. I missed that. A Vulcan Lurpa weapon from Amok Time. Yes, that's right. Mariner had that thing. Yes, I did. I did remember seeing that, but I didn't remember the name of it. The Klingon Batleth. Of course, we've seen those in various places.
Yeah,
everywhere. An Andorian dueling weapon, which we saw in Enterprise. A shark in a tank. I don't know. The Mars rover. That's interesting. I think that's an Enterprise reference, of course, and a real life reference. Caldescott game set from Voyager. Isomagnetic disintegrator from Worf's bazooka in Insurrection. Let's see. Tendi is holding a Trident scanner. Scotty loved that thing in TOS. And there was a Kurlan Neskos. I mentioned this last week. I didn't even notice the Neskos. Data's Picasso-esque painting of Spot. I missed that. Of course, the various things that Boimler said about the Enterprise D. They went to other dimensions, which was where no one has gone before. They fought the Borg. They insurrected. That was funny.
Yeah.
They had a regular string quartet. Riker was jamming on the trombone, which we see in many different parts. Catching love disease and acting in plays. Yes, they did all those things. I did notice the torpedo casing, which was probably the remains of Spock 2. So the Excalbian bones and Abe Lincoln from the Savage Curtain. Of course, a transporter clone. Riker leaning. Of course, we see him all the time leaning. And computer play Nightbird. That is something that we see Riker do in Second Chances. So that's it. There's a lot of them as usual. So let's move on to our shipwide announcements. All right, and as we say, thank you to Wes Huntington for collecting all these for us. And like last week, not quite as big, but this was a big news week because, of course, last week was the 55th anniversary reunion, 55-year mission convention. That's what they called it. I couldn't remember. 55-year convention in Las Vegas. So it used to be called Star Trek Las Vegas, but they can't officially call it that anymore. So one of the big things that got mentioned, nothing specific, nothing, that is the definition, but Robert Beltran, who of course was played First Officer Chakotay on Star Trek Voyager, has revealed that he will be in Prodigy as well. It's unclear when he would appear, but there's something he mentioned, something like, "Oh yeah, I'm in that thing that Kate's in." So I believe that that's what he was referring to. Some of the cast of Discovery appeared at the 55-year mission in Vegas, and they talked about the conditions of working on the show while also being safe from COVID-19. And I'm sure that there was quite a bit to say about that. Of course, they can't really talk too much about season 4, but they could talk about the first 3 seasons. So, and of course, shooting, because it seems like this season, shooting went on pretty long. It started in November, I think, and it's still going on officially. Like, I know a lot of the actors have wrapped, but the actual shooting has not wrapped, so there are still some scenes being shot. So they haven't officially said that it's done, but there I know is like Strange New Worlds finished shooting, all but second, what do they call it? Like pickups on they always go back and they do
second
like team or whatever. They go back and do retakes and things like that. That's a normal thing. That's the thing that Doomcock and Midnight's Edge like to say is a evidence that the show is doomed and things like that. No, that's what normal shows do. They go back and fix little things that either needed a reshoot, or they in editing they realize that they need to make this change or that change. These are normal things. It's all part of making the show better. So it's not in fact, if they don't do that, it's probably an indication that they don't care. So it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Anyway, I did not know this until I saw it in our show doc. The first 3 seasons of Discovery will be re-released as a 3-season set on November 2nd, and will include all of the special features from the season sets, plus all 42 episodes, and will supposedly retail for a not too cheap $130. So I don't know, because for that price, that's not, your typical Blu-ray price. I'm wondering if it's maybe 4K.
It could be.
But I don't know. This is something that I'll have to go back and look, and maybe I'll put something in here if there's something additional to say, or maybe I won't. But $130 is not exactly cheap for that. But it may be released at that time because they're still planning to release Discovery at the in 2021. So, like, if you go back and you time things, and so you guys understand where this number comes from. If you start back from last week, August 12th, and you count 10 weeks to the end of Lower Decks, and then you think that Prodigy will start the week after, and that's 10 weeks. That is 20 weeks total, and that puts week 21 as December 30th, 2021, which could be the week that Discovery Season 4 starts. So all the numbers work out to that. You go ahead, if you don't believe me, start counting on the calendar. I already did. So, and I double checked, and December 30th, 2021, that's when I project that, it'll come back. And if it doesn't come back that date, then it's probably because of some delay in shooting, or, Delta variant gets worse, or Lambda, or, Epsilon, or give me another Greek letter.
The Omega.
Nu or something, Anyway, I'm thinking of Revenge of the Nerds and Delta House and all these like different anyway. Some species or some variant of Kova will make things worse, but I don't think that will happen. I think we will get it December 30th, 2021. Anyway, so that's what I'm thinking will happen. The Roddenberry Archive was announced at the 55-year convention in Vegas too. And that will be a digital archive full of hundreds of thousands of memos, sketches, scripts, notes, blueprints, models, and everything else saved from his creative years. And you know what I'm thinking when I hear that? I think of the Picard archive that we see in Picard.
Yeah.
It's very, very funny that that gets mentioned. I'm going to read something out of order from what's in the notes here, because it fits. Roddenberry Entertainment has also done a separate podcast quoting Gene Roddenberry, talking about 100 of Gene Roddenberry's quotes in celebration of his 100th birthday, which I believe was earlier this week.
Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday.
Yesterday.
Yeah. And this includes some celebrities, which are, some celebrity stars, fans of the franchise, some Trek stars, all involved in saying, many of his quotes. I know that there's been a little thing that I see mentioned on Instagram and some various other places. There'll be this like, brief quote, and there'll be like Whoopi Goldberg or, some famous actor or whatever, says this brief quote about Gene Roddenberry. There were something Gene Roddenberry said. So I think that's cool. La La Land has released, I don't know who La La Land is, but has released an all-new, remastered, expanded soundtrack for The Wrath of Khan. It was originally expanded in 2009, but they have decided to completely remaster the soundtrack and have re-released it. It includes extensive liner notes. Interesting. Lower Decks Season 1 has been out on Blu-ray in North America for a few months now, but starting in November, places in Europe, Australia, and Japan will be able to purchase their own copies without having to import it from the US. I did not realize that it wasn't available yet. So, speaking of Roddenberry, Deadline Hollywood is reporting that a biopic of Gene Roddenberry is in the works. Interesting. It will be produced by Roddenberry Entertainment and written by Adam Mazer, who wrote the 2010 HBO film You Don't Know Jack, which starred Al Pacino as Dr. Jack Kevorkian, aka Dr. Death. I remember Jack Kevorkian very well. Used to hear him mentioned all the time on the Detroit news because I was living across the river from Detroit, and of course he was in the Detroit area, so you'd hear his name a lot on the news all the time. I did not know this, but thank you for mentioning it, Wes. The premiere of Lower Decks is now available on YouTube for a limited time. And also, we have, unfortunately, a person from the Star Trek alumni, someone who played Mr. Leslie in TOS, who was also a stand-in for William Shatner, Eddie Paskey, who, obviously TOS, he has passed away. So Eddie Paskey, I believe this just came out the other day. And then lastly, I wanted to end with this. It was just came out a few hours before we recorded. But, we mentioned last week that LeVar Burton didn't get the job for host of Jeopardy. That went to the executive producer. I don't remember his name offhand. Mike Richards. Mike Richards, apparently there is a bit of a scandal about him, and he has had to he's not going to be hosting Jeopardy anymore, put it that way.
No.
So
nope.
And I know that Mayim Bialik, who is hosting the the prime time and some specials and stuff like that, she isn't available to do the the syndicated version. So people are now wondering, is LeVar back in the running to get the job? I haven't heard anything. If he is, it's probably too early to mention it at this time. So
I think it's weeks. The Mike Richards guy pretty much stepped down, I think, today, and they're starting it all over again. And so it's going to be, hopefully LeVar will get, another, crack at it.
I mean, if that's what they're going to do and start the whole process over again, hopefully he'll get another chance to host, and if they're, going to go with the host that they looked at, hopefully they'll give him another chance. But I think he'd be a great host. I think it's time for, and he's a great he represents the meaning of Jeopardy, I think, in such a good way, coming from Star Trek, coming from engineering, the STEM stuff, and also coming from reading Rainbow. It's like a perfect mix of what you would want from a host of Jeopardy. So to me, I could think of no one better suited for the position. So I hope he gets it. That's it for our news this week. So Kyle, why don't you take it over and tell people how to contact us and send feedback.
All right. To submit your theories and feedback, go to talkthroughmedia.com/feedback, where you can submit text or audio. You can also call 216-232-6146. You can also email us at lowerdecks@talkthroughmedia.com or at Star Trek Discovery @talkthroughmedia.com. Post in our designated episode thread in our Facebook group, and you can find that at facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts with an S. The deadline for Lower Decks Season 2, Episode 3 will be on our regular day and time, Friday, August 27th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Eastern and 6 p.m. Central. A great way you can support us is to share us on Twitter and Facebook. You can also go to facebook.com/talkthroughmedia, where you can actually write a review. Please share us on Facebook and retweet us on Twitter, especially when we post the new episode is out. You can subscribe to the Talk Through Media YouTube channel. That is where you can find the episodes of the podcast when they're first, put out.
Yeah, and this week, if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you got the episode way ahead of everybody else because I couldn't get the blog post finished, and I think it was something like 18 hours later I finally got the episode out. I apologize to everyone that listens to it, over podcast client, but I couldn't get to it. I was trying, but
it can be daunting, especially when you're just like, okay, you're pushing like to basically encode and whatever, and you're waiting for it. It sends it immediately YouTube. Well, so it's like,
and there was a problem actually with our last step of the process. There was a problem with it, and it didn't upload the files to it. So I had to go back and get them. And like I was, it published, that's the weird part. It published it straight to YouTube, but it didn't send any of the stuff to my Dropbox. So I had to create a whole new process to send it to, I had to actually set up a different share to get it to send it to me at all. I don't know what happened, but
I better check that for the Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Make sure there's nothing wrong with my drive. Well, but still, definitely, if you want to hear it as soon as it's done, check out the YouTube channel. You can also subscribe to us in Apple Podcasts or your podcast client of choice. And while you're there, give us a rating or review.
And another good way to support us is by supporting us in Patreon. And like to thank James Robbins, Kim Vogley, Brian Shiro, Christoph Leitner, Lee Radke, Michael Carrier, Stephen Chambers, Kevin Lyle, Jeff Gentry, Robert Kaiser, Clint McCollum, Mike, LT, and that guy over there, Kyle. And remember, if you want to get all of the episodes, subscribe to the Star Trek Discovery podcast feed. That has everything on it for new Star Trek. And of course, everything that is on the network, including some new stuff, maybe, is on the Talk Through Media all-inclusive feed, which also includes, for Star Trek fans, the Rebinged DS9 podcast and the other podcast that Kyle and I do, the Walking Dead Talk Through. And Kyle and I have returned, or will be returning. This is wrong. I have to pull this out, but what's in the show doc. But Kyle and I have returned to the Walking Dead Talk Through. By the time you have heard this, it will have either the episode will have been out or what have you will be coming out. But Sunday, the premiere for season 11, the final season of The Walking Dead, will be out. It's already out if you are a member of AMC Plus. I'm not yet because I was too busy, so I didn't sign up yet. So it will be out, but it'll be Kyle, LT, and myself covering season 11. And once season 11 is done, we'll be doing the Fear of the Walking Dead and The World Beyond. So you'll be hearing a lot of us. So next episode, season 2, episode 3, titled We Don't Know Yet. It doesn't seem to be published anywhere yet, so couldn't find anywhere online or on Paramount Plus, and we don't know who's written it or directed it. We don't have a description, of course. So until next time, I'm Brian.
And I'm Kyle.
Peace and long life.
Live long and prosper.